Morning, everybody. So, have you ever heard birds of a feather flock together? Pretty common phrase in trucking. And what that means to me, what that means is like the buddy system, right? If I'm driving for Crete and I see another owner operator of Crete, I'll park next to them. Or even a company driver, I'll park next to them. Or if I'm in a shipping office or receiving, I'll talk to other owner operators at Crete or company drivers at Crete. You just kind of stick within your own. It's like, even though there's 5,000 drivers, you can go anywhere in the country and you'll find another Crete driver. and it's like you go somewhere, nowhere, Idaho or Montana, there's another Crete driver there, and you're far from any terminal, and it's probably not your home state. So what you want to do is you want to think about safety. So you're going to park next to the other Crete driver. That would be my first choice. If there isn't another Crete driver, let's say it's another big box carrier like Schneider, another dry van, 10,000 drivers, I would park next to them. Same thing with Warner, and in some occasions Swift. Not all Swift drivers are bad. I've talked to many Swift drivers. They're very successful. They make good profit, and they're good drivers. I think the problem with Swift is because they're the largest, and they have in-house training for CDL new students. They get more exposure. The bigger you are, the bigger footprint you have. Even if you only have, a low percentage of accidents, but because of the number of trucks you have, it seems like a lot. But if you compare it to other trucking companies, it may not be so much on a percentage by percentage basis. So they get because of their drivers too. There's no doubt about that. But so does Schneider. Schneider has some bad drivers because they hire students, and they're rookies, a lot of rookies. Crete doesn't hire rookies. You have to have at least 1 year experience before you come to Crete. So they're not, they're not as bad. Typically a Crete driver is very safe. And this is the idea of birds of a feather flock together. If you were thinking about where's a safe place to park or trying to be safe on the road, you want to be near other drivers, especially if it's the same fleet. Now, sometimes this doesn't always work. I was at a shipper last year, and a company driver with Crete was next to me. He pulled out, instead of pulling out normally, he pulled out like an idiot, and he tore off my mirror on my passenger side with his trailer. He swung too wide, and he had no idea he hit me. So the good thing is that because we were the same carrier, the insurance claim went very, very smoothly. A lot of times you have an accident like this, or someone rips off your front bumper, you're going to have a hell of a headache dealing with the insurance company of a different carrier. But if it's the same carrier, then it goes very, very smoothly. So yeah, you want to have the buddy system for safety, but if they hit your truck, you're dealing with the exact same safety department, same insurance company, so the repairs will go much smoother. So that's one of the advantages. And it's always nice to help out, other drivers when the company has less experience. If they're nice, if they ask politely. I've had company drivers, just be complete a-holes, and I won't help them, because, I'm an owner operator. I'm not required to help these company drivers. They come up and they start telling me how great they are and how many 20 years experience with the company, and they're drinking buddies with their asset manager or the vice president of something. I could care less. I run my own company. So if a company driver comes up to me and wants my help, they better be nice. If they're not nice, you're on your own. I've had Swift drivers come up to me and ask for help, and I was able to help them. Again, they're big box carrier, they're dry van. They recognize you as another big box carrier running dry van, and They may have less experience and they'll come up and ask you for help. Perfectly fine. You often see flatbed drivers. What do? They park next to each other. You know, uh, you know, if you see, these big Peterbilts, they don't park next to dry vans or they don't park next to Freightliners. They park next to other Peterbilts. So this is the idea of birds of a feather flock together. This is something you need to keep in mind. Especially if you're an owner operator, new owner operator, you want to you want to surround yourself with other owner operators. This goes with networking too. If you want to be a good owner operator, you need to network with other owner operators. It doesn't do you any good to be an owner operator and network with company drivers, because you got issues with taxes and maintenance that they don't have, so they're not going to help you. They can't help you, even if they wanted to. They're like, don't know. So you need to network with other owner operators. Again, birds of a feather flock together. Owner operators tend to network with other owner operators. This is how you're going to improve yourself. You can't improve yourself as an owner operator if you surround yourself with company drivers. You need to rely on the experience of guys that have been doing it for 20, 30 years. And even owner operators who've been on the spot market and then come back to contract freight, or may go back on the spot market again, or they change from Crete to Schneider to Landstar to Mercer back to Crete. All this is great experience you can learn from other owner operators. So you do need to network with other owner operators. So this is a basic principle in trucking and the owner operator business model as well. Birds of a feather flock together. All right, guys, for you watching. We'll see you on the internet.